It's lonely at the top. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. The higher you go, the lonelier it gets. I think all of us have heard one of those expressions, if not all of them. It is lonely at the top. And when you're at the top of your business, that loneliness costs your business growth if you do not pay attention to it. CEO loneliness is a widespread, high-impact phenomenon. According to the Harvard Business Review, 50 to over 60% of CEOs report feeling isolated in their roles. Even though many of them are involved heavily in networks or may lead extremely large organizations, they still feel lonely. This is often a hidden cost to your business that you do not recognize. This hidden aspect of loneliness, it limits your ability to lead and to grow your business. Today, let's talk about the reasons that CEOs feel lonely and why you should care and what you should do about it. Welcome to Mastering Business Flow, the essential podcast for business owners ready to transform their work life. I'm your host, Cords Lundow, a certified productivity and systems expert. I'll help you close that critical CEO gap, the gap between working hard and having real control over your business. We dive into the systems and skills of high-performing CEOs so that you can stop being stuck in daily tasks and start flourishing today. It's time to achieve simpler, higher quality living. Let's start flowing. Now, first of all, there are several reasons that CEOs often feel lonely. Number one is that they're the final decision maker. This is that idea of heavy as the crown. You feel that burden of responsibility that all the final decisions rest with you. When it's your own business, of course, all of your own money is on the line. You've got a lot of personal assets at stake, most likely. So there's this huge pressure to project strength and make difficult choices. So often we find that separates us from other people because we feel that we have to kind of project this image that we know it all. And we don't want to show basically some kind of weakness or indecisiveness or admit that we don't know it all. Just the fact that we feel that we have to make these decisions may unconsciously or subconsciously kind of pull back and withdraw from other people and keep ourselves maybe a little guarded. We don't want to show our doubts or indecision. The second thing is that there are hierarchical relationships. I grew up with my father telling me that there's no fraternization, meaning, you can't have someone from a higher level be friends with someone from a lower level. And we often see this with CEOs, right? Obviously, they outrank everybody in the organization. So it creates this imbalance in the relationships, and you don't feel like you can be as free, that you have to kind of set yourself apart somehow. And in some cultures, this is worse than others. Like they talk about the Korean pilots and airlines had a lot of accidents because of these hierarchical relationships. And the people underneath were afraid to tell the people up at the top of any mistakes that they made. So that actually led to more airline crashes. They had to kind of equalize those relationships in order for people to feel free to say things. And so you may not realize this, but just the fact that you are kind of above everybody else, it may be kind of setting you apart and blocking you from some of these relationships. A third very real constraint is confidentiality. You are dealing with a lot of information that other people shouldn't know. And obviously a lot of relationships are built on openness and honesty. So the fact that you have to hold in and keep confidential some of this information, it may make it difficult to really kind of open up. It's just going to create that kind of separation. And another one, the last one, there could be more, but I'm just highlighting these four, is that you might actually have a lack of confidence in your team, that you feel like you have to carry the burden, that you have to do the work, that somehow other people are not capable of doing it to the vision that you have. And so you take the burden if the rest of the team is not up to the task. So what does this mean for you as a CEO if you have suffered from these reasons that keep you separated? Well, what we find is that and this came out on the study several years ago, that when you have this kind of chronic unmanaged loneliness, it leads to more stress, burnout, and depression. And a Wharton study found that it can even shorten your life expectancy. The big study that came out a few years ago from the National Health, NIH, National Institute of Health, was that that loneliness is the equivalent impact on your health and life expectancy is smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So what does this mean? This means that you are more likely to have a heart attack, inflammation, a shortened lifespan, and your brain function. So obviously just by being unhealthy, you're not going to be able to be there for your business, and the lifespan is shortened. But the other big impact is that brain function, because as a CEO, in order to make the best decisions and lead your business forward, you need to be alert and functioning at your best. This is what I talk about all the time of being in flow or being a zone 2 CEO. This is how do you perform at your best? Because only when you perform at your best can your business do its best. It is very much dependent on you, but this loneliness is probably having a bigger impact than anything else on your ability to perform at your best. And that's one thing that we often overlook. We think that by pulling ourselves apart, we're, thinking about the business and doing the working on rather than in the business. But in reality, we are decreasing our ability to show up and be the person that we need to for the business. Most of this is a subconscious. We don't even realize we're doing it, but we often feel like we're the only one who can do it. We're the only one who can bear the pressure of the business, and that it is ultimately our responsibility, or we don't need to burden other people with the problems of our business. And then this separates us from the other people that could help us and further isolating us, which means we'll go into a downward spiral of even more pressure, feeling more stress and more burnout. So it's kind of like a downward spiral. It's a biological response, and it's leading your health and your mental function and your ability to make decisions. It's going to decrease that. And we find that in leaders, they suffer from these symptoms of like depression at like 26% compared to 18% in the general workforce. So they definitely feel those pressures and stresses a lot more. And I've heard of some people who step down and get rid of their businesses for this very reason. So really, if you look at that the loneliness is causing it, then a cure could be how do you beat out of that loneliness. So that's where we'll talk about the other way around. Like when you enhance the connection and get rid of loneliness, how that can benefit you. One is called Brainwriting. They did some studies, let me see if I wrote down here, Paul Paulus, which is an interesting name, had these interactive groups where they found that if they had people try to solve problems alone versus with other people, the ones who worked with other people came up with 28% more solutions. Now you think about this with running a business, you're facing problems, trying to solve problems every day, all the time. And if you put yourself aside in the office and just trying to, okay, I've got to separate myself and come up with all the answers, you're going to come up with fewer answers than if you work together with the team. That's why I highly recommend weekly leadership team meetings, because that's what you're focusing on together, solving those issues. And you're going to come up with a lot more ideas, and the more ideas you can come up with, the more likelihood you'll have of having a better idea, right? I mean, that's just pure numbers game. Come up with more and you'll come up with better ideas. So by opening up to even your employees or other peer groups, you're going to get more ideas. And this isn't just venting, but it actually is going to stimulate those ideas. And those ideas can solve your business problem. Now, another thing I've seen very introverted business owners who think they don't really need other people. They're like, and they don't really, introverted. I don't want to be networking. I don't want to be talking and socializing. We're just going to focus on the work. And they think they can pull that ahead. Now, there was another study called the TRAIN study by the University of Chicago where they made people, even if they didn't want to, and they declared themselves to be introverts, to talk to people on a commuter train. They forced them to have some conversations. And a lot of these people, before they did it, they said they did not want to do it. They did not guess it was going to make them happier. But all of them reported they felt happier in the end. Now, the reason I bring up this study is If you think that you don't need these other people and that you can take on all this work by yourself, I'm trying to show you that by working with the other people, by involving them, A, you're going to have the better ideas, right? But B, you're going to feel happier. Now, why do we care that as a CEO, you are happier? There's also a lot of science that shows we do our best work when we are happier. And again, everything I'm trying to tell you about in this podcast is getting to that kind of optimal zone, that where you are working your best and your business is going at its best, that zone 2, that state of flow. And when you are working in a happier state, your brain is going to work better. I think I've got some reasons for this. Give me a second here. So one is they find that people who are happier, or CEOs that are happier, they have more profitable businesses, that they're more positive and engaged, and it actually helps increase the employee productivity. It makes them happier as well. I have a story I had one boss that I worked for very early in my career who is a very positive person, always very happy, always said very good things to me. And then I had one who was later in my career who was a very hard driver, very critical of everything I did. And guess which one got the best work from me? It was the positive one. With him, I could do no wrong. I felt more able to take on risk, and so I was able to increase my performance. With the other one, I lived in more of a state of fear, so I did not take risk. I did not try things, and I took more the safe route, right? So I was less likely to tell them things. And as a leader, we want people to tell us things. Also, when our brain is happier, we make better decisions. It opens up different areas of your brain. I've talked about this a lot in other episodes, that when you're kind of in that flight or flight state, the stressed zone, you're using a different part of your brain, which is for emergency responses. And it's not the kind of thing, now it's good for the fast emergencies that you have, but what we want in general is to be living in a more relaxed flow state where our brain is thinking more creatively and we're coming up with better solutions to problems. And so when you're in a happier state, your brain is working in that kind of modality, in that mode. It's not using the, quick emergency, do this. It's like, slapping on the Band-Aid. Rather is you can get into kind of the root causes. And that's really the kind of decision making you want to do as a CEO. Also, as a happier CEO, you're going to increase all the employee morale and retention. I mean, think about it. What kind of person do you want to be around? You want to be around a happy person or someone who's withdrawn? You're cultivating better relationships at work, and it's a good work environment. People want to be there, want to give their best, just like I talked about. Also, when you are happier, you are, and I don't know how this has happened, but some studies show that you can give more accurate, less biased earning forecast. So, I mean, I can remember this from an episode of Succession. Those people were not at all happy if you've ever watched Succession. And he just goes in and makes up this forecast of what they could do with this new project when he was presenting to investors in the company. I mean, totally made up numbers. And he's like, yeah, we can do this. But evidently, when we are more joyful, we're more realistic about what we can take on and we can predict more accurately. And that increase people trust in us when they know that we are more accurate. The other is what I already talked about, is we have increased innovation. When we are happier, we are more energized and enthusiastic, and it also encourages others. It creates that culture of innovation and growth. So how do we do this? There's lots of different ways that we can get out of this kind of loneliness, isolated rut that we could be in as a CEO and build those kinds of connections. The first one is getting support from the outside. And this is what, I'm a solopreneur, so this is for me the biggest, is having a peer group. Now, a lot of us may be in certain peer groups, but you need a peer group, people who are business owners in similar industries with you that you can actually open up to. Don't try to project this image that your company somehow doesn't have any problems, because you have to let through some vulnerability in order to have that connection with other people. I'm a member of one group called the Women Business Owners of North Florida. So there are other business owners who are women like me in my geographic area. And I just by connecting with them on a regular, like on a weekly basis, there's some sort of event. It's mainly a friendship. Maybe it's a happy hour, a lunch, a breakfast. We also have some organized meetings over topics. But I get inspired by them. By listening to their stories, I see that there are lots of other people facing the same challenges as I am, and some of them who've come through it. So that's what's the inspiration for me. So I don't feel as lonely because I know there are tons of people right around me, and any day I can pick up and call or write somebody in my neighborhood, basically, who's going through the same things I am. The other thing is I am all able to help them as well. I can, some things I've experienced and they haven't, some things they've experienced and I haven't. So we're sharing that expertise. And when I'm helping them, that makes me even more joyful. And, we get the benefit. It's a double benefit, right? I'm helping them and I'm helping me. I've also joined some online groups, and I feel like those connections are just as strong. Those are even more focused. So the one I join locally is for general business, women business owners. But then I joined several online communities specific to people building coaching businesses. And, there's larger groups, and then I connect with certain people in there and meet with them regularly. I even have my own coach in one of those groups. So looking at lots of different levels of connection, but opening up to people about challenges and being honest with them that they're on a peer level, I can not feel lonely like I would if I was only talking about my business to friends and family who have no concept of what I am dealing with every day. They understand and can relate to me in another way so that I do not feel that lonely and I can feel more encouraged. Another solution to beating loneliness is keeping a growth mindset, because we go back to why CEOs feel lonely. One is that they have to basically seem to solve all these problems and seem to have the answers for everything. And with a growth mindset, we don't worry about having all the answers to everything. We recognize that we're going to fail at some things, but we're going to learn from it. And this can also project to our employees. We are creating a culture of learning wherever we want people to share their mistakes. And Pixar is famous for this, that they get together and they have meetings about films that they're making and talk about all the mistakes, but that's how they get better. Mr. Beast says for his, if you want to work with him, you've got to make 100 videos and just get out there and learn from them, and each one improve. This is a growth mindset. You don't have it all together at the beginning. That makes you feel, if you try to project that image, it makes you feel isolated from others. But by having this growth mindset, it makes you want to connect and learn from others. And it shows you kind of being opening up and welcoming to them. Other people are going to want to share with you. So it adds that sense of connection. So these are two ways so far that we've got that you can overcome this kind of sense of isolation, right? One is a peer group where you're opening up and sharing. Two is just by changing this mindset to a growth mindset, that these mistakes are something you're going to learn from. It's not a bad thing. Similar to the growth mindset, Jim Collins in Good to Great found that the companies that did the best over the long term had very modest CEOs. CEOs who admitted very upfront, I don't know the answers. And then that then invited other people to share. So that CEO wasn't isolated, away in their little ivory tower trying to figure out all the answers alone, but they're inviting the answers from other people. And again, what did I say? When you work with other people, you're going to come up with better ideas. So we want to lean into situations where we don't know, because that's another thing that happens. If you go into the situation thinking you know it all, you're probably not even going to take on opportunities with your business that will allow it to grow. By taking this kind of a mindset, this growth mindset, you're going to lean into areas of growth that will help your company to do better. This relates to the third way to overcome that isolation, is just by creating a warm working environment. It doesn't need to be, all business, no play at your business. But again, you're not there to be friends with everyone. We are away from saying our business is like a family, because we know we're not a family. A family is always there. And you have a goal as a business to reach a certain objective, right? And so it's actually more like a team. You have the common goal to win the game, and you're going to work together and support each other so that each one's strengths can come through. And this is what we want with our businesses as well. And for everyone to be working together, we all need to be kind of connected, feel welcome, feel accepted, feel that our ideas count, where we create and by having this growth mindset, you're going to lead to this kind of environment. Then you feel less isolated as well in your own business because, okay, it's not a family, but you feel this warmth in with your colleagues or with your team members. And part of this is just, getting to know them and learning some emotional cues. And don't just, it's not 100% about the performance. It's all kind of a learning journey. You're helping them to learn and grow, and you're learning and growing from them at the same time. And the last one that's going to help you feel less isolated is just self-compassion. That accepting that you're going to make mistakes sometimes. We don't always make the right answers. And then admitting that to others, when you show that kind of vulnerability, it increases their trust in you, which is what you want with your clients as well as with your employees. You want to be authentic so that they can connect with you, and then you also are less isolated. This is, Brene Brown talks about armored versus, I forgot what the other one was she said. I'll have to put that in the notes. But when you're armored, you're trying to hide all of your mistakes and your flaws and come across as this perfect being. But we have to have this forgiveness with ourselves and recognize that nobody's perfect. We're all going to make mistakes, and it's okay. You will get over it. You don't have to come up with that perfect image with your employees. And that is going to open up the connection that you can have with them, and by building more of the trust. If this episode reminded you of a business owner who's gone quiet lately, who seems to be suffering and may be isolating and too lonely, please share this with them. Help them to break out of this isolation. And if you missed anything, I have the full notes and links on my website, and you can find the link to my full notes in the show notes. Thank you for listening.